Jamaica is known for its vibrant culture, breathtaking landscapes, and reggae music, but unfortunately has also been plagued by a dark history of political violence. At the heart of this history lies Tivoli Gardens, a neighborhood in the capital city of Kingston, founded by Edward Seaga, a prominent Jamaican politician and former prime minister. Tivoli Gardens emerged from the demolition of the squatter community known as Back a Wall. This documentary explores the transformation of Tivoli Gardens into a political garrison for the Jamaica Labour Party, the origins of political violence in Jamaica, and the rise of the infamous shower Posse, led by Jim Brown and Vivian Blake, who also had connections to drug trafficking.
Glock dash you well, strap dash you well. Call rhyme stop, give them the big dirty shotty there. Pants pull it up, bang full it up. This a big song, tell the DJ fi pull it up. Too much bloodshed na the street on the right. Pick me up fi sleep on them bed, not in a white. No. Them war, make them go fight in a Call of Duty. Real life no game, you no one dead like Tootie. Mama cry when she hear the gunshot. One son gone, now she hard drop like. Make we change the thing, make we start build. Put down the tool, pick up the skill.
In the late 1960s, Edward Seaga, a member of the JLP, embarked on a project to transform the impoverished and crime-ridden squatter community of Back a Wall into a more organized settlement. The project aimed to provide better living conditions for the residents and establish a stronghold for the JLP in the politically volatile area. The result was the birth of Tivoli Gardens, a housing development that took its name from the famous Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, Denmark.
A story told from the heart and the tongue of Edward Seaga, of a seminal and groundbreaking move to transform a slum bearing the apt name Back a Wall. One outsider who worked in the area recalls families living in old car bodies and the structures built of cardboard boxes and flattened tins, as well as people lining up in droves to take water from a standpipe with old buckets and cans. While some remember the bulldozing of the site and exodus of the then occupants to other areas of the city,
Tivoli Gardens became a political garrison, a term used to describe areas where political parties maintain a strong presence, exerting influence over the residents through patronage and control. However, this development also marked the beginning of a dark era of political violence in Jamaica. The intense rivalry between the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, and the People's National Party, PNP, escalated, leading to violent clashes and bloodshed, primarily in marginalized communities like Tivoli Gardens. Within Tivoli Gardens, a notorious criminal organization known as the Shower Posse emerged in the late 1970s. The group, led by Vivian Blake and his enforcer Jim Brown, became involved in various criminal activities, including drug trafficking. The Shower Posse gained significant influence and power through their association with the JLP, effectively acting as enforcers for the party within Tivoli Gardens and beyond. Vivian Blake, a charismatic figure, not only held sway over the criminal underworld, but also had connections to drug trafficking networks in the United States. His close associate, Jim Brown, played a crucial role as the muscle behind the Shower Posse. Their criminal exploits extended beyond Jamaica, establishing ties with drug cartels in the United States, particularly in New York City. This illicit connection led to Tivoli Gardens becoming a hub for drugs and weapons, smuggling-related activities, and further fueled the violence that engulfed the area. Lester Lloyd Coke, popularly known as Jim Brown, worked as a key enforcer for the Jamaica Labour Party under Edward Seaga. He was said to be a protector of Tivoli Gardens poor by Seaga himself, and he took over one of the garrison constituencies of Kingston during the violence of the 1970s. In 1984, he killed 7 JLP defectors, and he became the boss of the Shower Posse gang. He used the proceeds from drug sales, stolen passport rings, and protection rackets to assist the poor of his territory, but he was later jailed for his crimes. In 1992, he was killed during a mysterious fire at his prison, and his son, Christopher Coke, took over his gang after his death. The influence of Tivoli Gardens and the Shower Posse extended beyond the confines of Kingston, spreading a culture of violence and criminality throughout Jamaica. The region became synonymous with political garrisons and the associated corruption and violence that permeated Jamaican politics for decades. Innocent civilians often became victims of this violence, caught in the crossfire between political factions and criminal organizations. Tivoli Gardens, founded by Edward Seaga, evolved from the demolition of Bacca Wall into a political garrison for the JLP. Unfortunately, this development also marked the beginning of a dark chapter in Jamaica's history, characterized by political violence and the rise of criminal organizations like the Shower Posse. Vivian Blake and Jim Brown's influence over Tivoli Gardens and their involvement in drug trafficking in the United States further exacerbated the violence and turmoil. Today, efforts are being made to address the legacy of political violence in Jamaica and build a more inclusive and peaceful society. In the gritty underbelly of Jamaica's criminal underworld, another name has become synonymous with power, influence, and violence: Christopher Dudus Cope, who succeeded his father, Jim Brown, as the notorious leader of the Shower Posse, a powerful Jamaican gang. Coke's reign of terror gripped the nation for years. Known as the President and the Don of Tivoli Gardens, his criminal empire was built on drug trafficking, extortion, and brutal acts of violence. Born on March 13, 1969, in the impoverished neighborhood of Tivoli Gardens in Kingston, Jamaica, Christopher Coke grew up surrounded by poverty and crime. His father, Lester Lloyd Coke, known as Jim Brown, was a notorious Jamaican gangster who founded the Shower Posse. Following in his father's footsteps, Dudus quickly rose through the ranks of the criminal world, gaining control over the Tivoli Gardens area and establishing himself as the de facto ruler. Coke's criminal activities centered around drug trafficking, primarily involving cocaine and marijuana. His organization, the Shower Posse, had extensive international connections and was responsible for smuggling large quantities of drugs into the United States and other countries. The Shower Posse's influence was so significant that it was considered one of the most powerful drug cartels in the Caribbean. Under Dudus Coke's leadership, Tivoli Gardens became a fortress-like stronghold, fiercely protected by armed gang members loyal to him. The gang members had powerful weapons like rocket launchers, dynamites, 50-caliber machine guns, and grenades, and was not afraid to take on the Jamaican army and police force, as they did on Saturday, July 7, 2001, when top crime-fighting cop Reneto Adams and his team of officers went into Tivoli on a weapons search operation that turned into a Holyrood-style gun battle that left 27 civilians and one member of the security force dead.
Two members of the security forces, Lance Corporal Kevin Lawrence of the Jamaica Defence Force and Police Corporal Mark Henry, who was traveling next to Superintendent Reneto Adams, were fatally shot.
I saw men from Tivoli go to the police vehicle, park before the Tivoli court, and throw a bomb inside. The vehicle exploded and caught fire. I am aware that about 8 gunmen have been shot. Some have been killed, but what I've been observing, people have been taking them up along with their guns in handcarts and going towards Tivoli.
Superintendent Adams says he was pinned down and unable to move. Mr. Seaga says this was not so, as he even offered Superintendent Adams safe passage out of the area.
I told him that I would flatly reject that offer because I could not have left the government vehicle nor my men behind me.
Coke used his power and influence to provide social services such as health care and education to the residents of Tivoli Gardens. This dual persona of a ruthless gang leader and a community benefactor created a complex and complicated image of Coke within Jamaican society. The international community became acutely aware of Coke's activities in 2010 when the United States sought his extradition on drug and weapons trafficking charges. The Jamaican government, led by Prime Minister Bruce Golding at the time, fearing the potential for widespread violence, initially resisted the extradition request, leading to a standoff between Coke's loyalists and the security forces. The Tivoli Gardens incursion, which ensued in May 2010, resulted in the deaths of at least 73 people and exposed the violent grip that coke held over the community as the country was plunged into what felt like a civil war or a state of anarchy when police stations were attacked by thugs with high-powered weapons and set on fire using Molotov cocktail bombs. A state of emergency was declared and the full strength of the Jamaica Defense Force was seen on the streets of Kingston. After weeks on the run, Dudus coke was captured on June 22, 2010, when a car was intercepted and searched and he was found in the company of a prominent minister of religion, Reverend Al Miller, dressed in the disguise of a female wig and a hat. The story was that he was trying to get to the U.S. Embassy in Kingston to turn himself in to the U.S. authorities.
It took a month for the largest manhunt in modern Jamaica to come to an end.
Christopher Dudus Coke is now in police custody.
As the security forces stepped up the manhunt, Dudus changed his appearance drastically, not only shaving his beard, but wearing a wig.
He was extradited to the United States, where he faced charges related to drug trafficking and racketeering. In 2012, Coke pleaded guilty to the charges and was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison. His capture and subsequent imprisonment dealt a significant blow to the Shower Posse and its criminal network. Since Coke's incarceration, efforts have been made to restore law and order in Tivoli Gardens. The Jamaican government launched initiatives to provide social programs, job opportunities, and increased police presence in an attempt to reclaim the community from the clutches of organized crime. However, the scars left by Coke's reign of terror and the Shower Posse's influence continue to impact Tivoli Gardens and its residents.
Yes, I saw it, and I said it in an interview that Jamaica would pay dearly, dearly. And I hasten to say, and I mean it, if we don't try to arrest the situation, we are only at the first stage of the dearly. The other dearly is still to come. Dearly, dearly.
With Coke serving a long sentence in the United States, it has perpetuated another bloody turf war which has escalated when remnants of the underworld, in and around Tivoli, who are on opposing turfs, battle to fill the power vacuum that is left behind with the absence of Dudus. Today, Christopher Dudus Coke remains an infamous figure in Jamaica's criminal history. While his imprisonment has weakened the Shower Posse, the remnants of the organization still exist, posing a challenge to the ongoing efforts to eradicate organized crime.
Tivoli Gardens represent the mother of all garrisons.
The legacy of Dudus Coke serves as a stark reminder of the influence and destructive power that organized crime can have on communities and the continued fight for justice and security in Jamaica. During the 1980s, Vivian Blake was responsible for flooding Bronx localities such as Soundview, Crotona Park, and the Bronx River with tons of crack cocaine. Blake and other gang members were charged in a multiple killing in Miami, but he escaped apprehension by traveling to Jamaica. After later charges were added, he was extradited to the United States in 1999. In 2000, he pleaded guilty to charges including racketeering and conspiracy and admitted to his role in the gang. He was sentenced to 28 years, but was released on parole after 8. After being released from prison, Blake returned to Jamaica. Blake died on March 21, 2010, at the age of 53 after being admitted to University Hospital of the West Indies for a heart attack. At the time of his death, he was suffering from kidney disease and undergoing dialysis. At the peak of Coke's reign, he was considered the most powerful man in Jamaica and became even more powerful when he agreed on a truce for peace with another brutal Don and gang leader, Donald Phipps, popularly known as Zeeks, now incarcerated. They both controlled downtown and western Kingston. With a grip of fear and respect, robberies and burglary decreased about 95%, but extortions increased at an alarming rate as the two Dons were literally wielding more power than the government, as violators of the system would be pursued, interrogated, and in most instances be executed by means of jungle justice. There was also a story that was told by a higgler from the parish of St. Mary who parked his car and went to sell coconuts in the Coronation Market. When his car was broken into and his money and other items was stolen, he made a report to the police and was told by an officer to go and make. A report to Dudus He went and complained to the Don, and his stolen items and money was returned to him in less than an hour.
Two policemen were ambushed and killed the night of Sunday, May 23, and a number of police stations in the corporate area set on fire. The next Monday, Labor Day, chaos descended on the capital as the unrest was catapulted after the announcement of the signing.
My fellow Jamaicans, the government has never refused the request for the extradition of Christopher Cook. It has simply asked the U.S. authorities to provide additional information that would enable the minister to issue the authorization in compliance with the terms of the treaty. The Minister of Justice, in consideration of all the factors, will sign the authorization for the extradition process to commence.
Entire nation brought to a standstill.
Christopher Dudus Coke, one of the world's most notorious drug traffickers.
A state of emergency limited to the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew came into effect at 6 p.m. today.
Residents of Tivoli Gardens, dressed in white, turned out by the hundreds Thursday morning for a peaceful demonstration. They started here at the Denham Town Police Station. Their message to police? Simple. Stop the propaganda. They are not being held hostage inside their communities. Neither have their cell phones been confiscated by gunmen. That's the response from residents following police reports Wednesday that no one was being allowed in or out of Tivoli Gardens, that their phones had been taken away, and that thugs were using JPS electricity lines to energize fortified barricades.
I lie them, I tell. Look at the electric wire. They say any wire hook up to no let. It's a speed propaganda. They're trying to put a black painting on my brother.
You see the blackage that they are talking about? Yes, the blackage they have to put up. But everybody loves to do it.
Them not talk about phone attack when no goes to raise the phone.
Thursday's demonstration underscores the loyalty of Tivoli residents to the man they call president. They described him as their protector and provider and urged the government to leave him alone.
I don't see my 6 feet to them on me. I don't go to the politician, I go to Dudus.
All when Dudus do for we, when they go with him, who else are going to stand up for him?
Jesus dead for us, or we are dead for Dudus.
Dash you well, strap dash you well. Call try stop, give them the big dirty shotty there. Pants pull it up, bang full it up. This a big song, tell the DJ fi pull it up. Too much bloodshed na the street on the right. Pick me up fi sleep on them bed, not in a white. Them war, make them go fight in a Call of Duty. Real life no game, you no one dead like Tootie. Mama cry when she hear the gunshot. One son gone, now she heart drop like. Make we change the thing, make we start build. Put down the tool, pick up the skill.